Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast. We start on the DXY on the weekly time frame. We just had 3 very bullish weeks in a row and are now in an area of interest here. On the daily time frame, we can see we had more than 2 weeks bullish momentum without any bearish candles in between. And then finally on Friday, we finished on a bearish engulfing candle, tapped into this previous low here and finished back below this area of interest here. It's the liquidity area here. So we are expecting some form of consolidation in this area after such a bullish momentum run before we then move higher. So I'm expecting for price to form a bigger bull flag continuation pattern for the next leg up. I would change my bias if I see suddenly another 1 or 2 impulsive days, bearish days, and then bear flag continuation on the lower time frame. As long as I don't see any price action like that, my overall bias is clearly US dollar longs. Moving on to Euro US dollar, we have the same picture just inverse. On the daily, we can see we had a few more consolidations in between and not only bearish candles, and are now in a weaker area of interest, still have a gap to a slightly stronger area of interest, and then some value areas, especially a bigger value area down here. So there's still more room to the downside, very similar to the DXY for the upside. After this momentum run, I'm expecting a slightly bigger consolidation before we see the next leg down. On the 4-hour, we can see we have some areas of interest. We have this small liquidity area here, which is just slightly above this smaller area of interest to the left. So I'm looking for price to form some form of a 3-touch structure into this area before I would entertain a short. Otherwise, if we see DXY selling up a bit more aggressive in the beginning of next week, we do have some other areas which it would make sense for price to retrace without even changing the overall bias. So in case we get something like that, more of a V shape, I would just wait for price to break below and then give me some form of bearish continuation on the lower time frame for then entering a short or entertaining a short continuation short. Australian dollar, US dollar, similar. We have less strong area of interest to the left. We have one bigger one here, which left the obvious gap to fill. I'm looking here for a bit more, sorry, that was one too much, for a bit more aggressive retrace in the beginning of the week into this area and then break back in and a bear flag continuation for a short. That is one option. Otherwise, if it takes a bit longer and we get a bigger 1, 2, 3 into this liquidity area like on Euro US dollar, that would be totally fine and give me a good entry on a more weighted time frame, on a 4-hour time frame. New Zealand dollar, US dollar. We go shortly back to the weekly before we go to the lower time frame. We have this on watch for a while as well. We had this very, very nice, strong, bearish weekly candle, which started the initial bear run here. We left the gap here even last week on the weekly time frame and are clearly in no man's land here. So we are looking for price to finish the move into this area or into the smaller area of interest in between. On the daily, we can see we have a similar momentum run. We had a similar momentum run than Australian dollar, US dollar, or Euro US dollar. However, New Zealand dollar is a bit weaker at the moment and started to form a bit more complex consolidation here already. So on the 1-hour time frame, we have a more clear structure here, which could be a liquidity area here for price to retest. We also then had this, we left this small hook point or liquidity point, however you want to call it, which price then cleared in form of a V shape with the 1, 2, 3 and then left another small structure here and a hover. So here was actually a trade, a potential trade. It's not according to my trading plan. I saw it, but I did not trade it because I don't trade these kind of hovers within bigger structures. But technically, this was an entry here for a potential 3.5 to 1. So what I'm looking now is for price to form a bigger, more clearer structure. I would like to see for price to retap at least this area, preferably this liquidity area, then for entertaining a potential short. US dollar, Canadian dollar on the weekly time frame, we are building this rising wedge here into this previous value area. We are on the third leg up. So at the moment as well, we have a momentum run of 3 bullish weeks and are looking now for a smaller consolidation for the last leg up. If we have a bigger consolidation here, that might be even enough volume to move price outside and higher up, because overall in proportion, this area is already more than 50% into the run. We are just targeting this value area, so there is more potential. And on the 1 hour time frame, we have price left a small liquidity point here. It's a very, very small weak one. It's a weak. It was not really news volatility, so it might also be this area here, which is more significant. However, we will see what price action is giving us. So I'm looking for price to form some form of a 1, 2, 3 into this area here before we then continue to the upside. US dollar, Swiss francs on the weekly time frame, we have this pair on watch for quite a while as well. You can see that the watch list is very similar to the one the week before. That's why we only had one trade in the trade review from last week. So that price really takes a bit more time to develop and finish the structure. So we might get more opportunity the coming week. So we were initially looking for price to finish the run here into this low. However, that did not happen. Instead, price started to stall here for quite a while. And then 2 weeks ago, finally it broke out impulsively. We can see that more clear on the 4 hour actually. 4 hour is better. We left some significant liquidity areas here. We have this volume accumulation where price broke out, broke back in, failed to sell off again. Instead, came back up one more time, made a double top, broke back in, failed to sell off again. So actually at this point here, we were quite sure that we are looking for potential longs because price failed to sell off multiple times. Then going down to the 1 hour, we actually discussed this trade here in the trade review video just a moment ago. There was a nice long here actually on the 1 hour time frame. Price broke impulsively above this previous high here and then started to form a bull flag continuation and gave an entry in this area here. So I'm looking now for price to consolidate a little bit more and give me a bigger structure at this time, right? Because we are also expecting DXY to stall a bit and build up more volume for the next leg. So that would be very similar to US dollar, Swiss francs. So therefore, I'm looking for price to form a 1, 2, 3 into this area here for then entertaining a long position in this area. Australian dollar, yen, we always have one yen pair at least on watch just to keep track on what is happening on the yen. My overall bias is actually still long yen. However, it seems the retrace is not yet finished and we did not tap into any areas of significance before from the initial run to the downside. So we can see we are still in an upward momentum. Actually, it's not really momentum anymore. We are stalling, right? So we are stalling, but it looks like that we are building more volume here for another leg up. We can see that on the 4 hour time frame, we had almost all the ingredients to sell off, right? We had almost everything. We were looking for price to tap back into this area, because this was the only significant continuation pattern on the whole initial impulsive move to the downside. And we did not get there yet. So we had the chance here to finish this structure. That's what we were looking for an entry short here. And we did not get that. Instead, price started to roll over, but even then failed to gain any bearish momentum to then really sell off. So at the moment, I'm looking for price to finish the move at least into this 4 hour or into this area of interest. However, if we can see that here, it's 4 hour time frame, right? So it's quite big. So this will take some time. But if we can get a clear bull flag continuation in this area, and this would be the first leg, then 2 and 3, there is enough that could gain or build enough volume to really move price back up into these areas, or even one more up to the highs before we then finally roll over. So for now, I'm just looking to play this range here. And if I get a nice 1, 2, 3 into this area at least, then I would entertain a long in this area. However, if price suddenly breaks down impulsively or even clears these lows preferably, and then giving me some form of bear flag continuation down below here, of course I would change my bias for a short. And as long as that doesn't happen, or even breaking out here and giving me the bear flag here, if I can manage the trade to these lows, I will entertain a short trade. However, as long as I don't see this kind of clear price action, I'm looking for a long on this pair. Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. Now we have some very interesting price action coming up. We were looking for a short in this area a few weeks ago. However, again, we had a change in momentum and a nice bullish run, and are now stalling 2 weeks in a row already, right? So these are 2 doji candles here, so it could go either way. On the 4 hour time frame, we can see again we failed twice already, right? So we had this high initially, we did not really tap it again, sold off, had a consolidation here, sold off, failed to continue here. Instead, here again, this was an expanding, failed again, moved up, failed here to sell off. So I'm looking at that moment for a long, right? Because overall, my bias is that Australian dollar is stronger than New Zealand dollar. So I'm looking for price now to form a proper, at least a 2-touch structure, 1, 2, into this liquidity area here to then entertain a long to finish the leg from here up to this area of interest, the previous 2 highs, to close the gap here. And then here I would reassess and then potentially change my bias again. New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar on the weekly time frame. Again, it's a pair we have on watch for quite a while. Again, we had a lot of areas of interest here. So where price tapped into this, price cleared out the previous high here, and this is weekly time frame, so we speak about quite a lot of time. We left the gap, but since there is so many, it's not very significant gap. That's why we said after this weekly very bearish week, we were looking for a continuation short. And on the 4 hour time frame, again, we were looking for continuation shorts and are still on an overall short bias on New Zealand dollar. We had this V shape here with which we did not tap. So we did not get an entry in this area for a short. And then I was looking on Friday if we get an area, if we get a short in this area, another V shape a bit smaller within structure to then at least finish this leg here. However, you can see it's the last 2 4-hour candles on Friday, so we did not get a clear price action. So for next week, this is still in play. So this is still possible that we start selling off and then getting a smaller bear flag continuation on the lower time frame. I would entertain a short in this area. However, preferably it would be nice if price then retraces a bit more, closing the gap to this liquidity area here, and then giving us an entry in this area. So this will also take some time to develop. This would then also fit with the overall structure proportionally, because like when we look for the last leg, so we're still below the 50% pip. So this is all still in line. So this would still make sense in terms of proportions of the overall run. Euro Canadian dollar, also a very interesting one. On the daily, we had this on watch initially for a potential 1, 2, 3 and a sell. Then we changed bias because of sudden euro weakness, and I had this on watch then for a short in this area with an expanding structure short. Failed. So it's a nice example of how higher time frame bias is overriding lower time frame price action. So we can really see the higher time frame at this point was for a long, and it gave us actually a long. However, it failed to create new highs and did not break out. So it's still within this bigger bull flag continuation. And that's why on the lower time frame, I'm also now more biased to the long. So I need very, very clear price action on something like that, because it is the whole structure or price at the moment is within no man's land. So we had a small bear flag here, an expanding, an initial sell-off, failed to continue in this area. We ended on wicks and then started to impulsively move back up again and are now above this area here, like this small high. So as long as we stay here and forming a nice, I need at least a 1, 2, 3 continuation pattern before I would entertain a long in this area. It has to be very clear price action. Anything else, I would not entertain. Euro New Zealand dollar, also similar, needs clear price action. We had this on watch as well. We discussed it multiple times with this washout, the initial sell-off. And then even here, price retraced quite a lot and then finished the last leg. So we were actually looking for price to close the gap, right? And that did not happen. However, if we look on the 4-hour time frame, about the whole move, right? We had this expanding structure here with the 1, 2, 3 into these highs, then the initial sell-off, and a retrace, a sell-off with a new low, but it did not tap and close the gap here. However, if I check on the FIB tool, we see that we finished more or less, actually it's almost on point, 90% of the run, right? So when this was the last initial bullish run up, we retraced almost 90%. So it would make sense for price to turn around, right? So it is possible for price to turn around. And seeing the price action here, we had a nice expanding continuation. An expanding pattern can work into both ways. It could be a continuation or also a reversal. And it failed to sell aggressively, right? So that's why it's kind of neutral. And kind of neutral means we just have to wait. So if price is breaking below, making a new low, and then is giving us a nice bear flag continuation below all this price action here, of course, I would entertain a short. However, my bias is long on euro against the New Zealand dollar. So what do I need? So I need for price to give me a clear signal. Price should impulsively break up. I'd like to see like 2, 3, at least 4-hour candles, momentum candles, and then on the lower time frame, a bull flag continuation, and I would entertain a long for at least the area back into this high with potential for more. So that's it for the coming week. This is my watch list, my 10 pairs. So thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye-bye.